Hello, good day. You there? I'm Jeffrey, and welcome to my session on Stata. We'll be having talks about statistics and data science, and it's a time for us to explore data. So, if you are very much interested in exploring data, running the numbers, looking at what the data says, telling the stories from the data, this is what all this is about. So, but first of all, before you tell the stories, you have to know what the data is saying. And how to know what the data is saying? You have to do an analysis of the data. And one of the tools you can use for analyzing the data is Stata. So Stata, as you've heard the name, is a statistical tool that's basically for running data analysis and statistical analysis. Yeah. So we'll be doing virtually that here. So welcome once again. In this introductory series, I'll take you through how to basically import data into your Stata, how to manage your data, and how to begin your initial and preparation of your data before you even begin the analysis. Some call it data wrangling, some call it data preparation, some call it data cleaning. Yes. So, especially if you are in the area of collecting primary data, once the data comes, you may want to clean it, make sure it's prepared, ready before you start the analysis. So that once you are doing the analysis, you don't have to be doing the back and forth. Okay. Yes. So if you're new to Stata, this is how the interface of Stata looks like. The center stage or the center pin here is where we have the results pin, and to my right here, the right pin here is what we call the variable pin. Then we have the properties pin. We have the command pin here, and the pin here is the history pin, basically the command history pin. So whatever command you enter here, it's recorded here, and you have a history of whatever commands you would have inputted, and whatever results that are generated, you have them here. You can also know that you can save your results or output in PDF format, in other formats like Excel, in Word. We'll go into the details of that and the advancedness of all these things. So yes, there's a lot to learn, but there's always a place to start. So happy to have you here once again, and we'll be learning all of this. You would have noted that for all the pins, you see their names or titles written boldly by them, so that you don't forget what they are. Okay, so let's move on. I mentioned that today we'll just be looking at how to import data, and what does importing data mean? And importing data simply means that you are bringing the data from wherever it is to your Stata. So if you're bringing data to Stata, then basically what you have to be thinking about is in what format is your data. Your data could be in Excel format, it could be in SPSS, that's SAF format, it could be in CSV, comma, separated format, and in any other format. But these are the common ones. And it could even be in Stata format. And once it's in Stata format, you're not importing again, you are just opening the data. So we are dealing with data that are not in Stata formats, but are in different formats that you can bring them on board, or you can load them into your Stata and then proceed with data analysis. And this is what we'll be doing. So we'll go through the commonest type of data types we usually import with. That's the CSV and then the XLS or Excel form of data. So you'd see that when you want to import data, you first have to come to your file. When you click on file, and among the tabs you come to import. Well, later I'll take you through all of these for you to understand what they stand for. But as I mentioned earlier, when you are importing data, you should be mindful of what format your data is before you we bring it into Stata. That would guide you to know which of the options to select here. So that if your data is in Excel spreadsheet, XLS form, this is the option you select. If it's in text, that's CSV. If it's a SAS, SPSS format, SAF, sorry. If it's in SAS, this is what you also select, and depending on the other. So these are actually, it's been ordered in the most frequently used data format type. So these are hardly used, but then not that they are not used, but they are not frequently used data types. So if you've been using data and you are in the business of dealing with data, especially survey data, then you would have been dealing with CSV formats of the data and then XLS formats of data. So export, there's also export. Export is when you have generated your results, or even with your data you have, you may want to take it out or to save it outside of Stata. So that way, or even in Stata form. So you basically want to export. I guess that is it. And then we have the log. So log, you can begin a log and end a log. So when you are beginning a log, it means you are keeping trail or track of whatever session or whatever activity you're doing in your Stata. So that when you begin a log, it records the commands and the results you are generating. And anytime you rerun that particular log, then your results and commands are done. So it keeps a memory of all of these. Okay, so let's go to our inputs, what we will be doing today. So we go to the first, which is the Excel spreadsheet format. So assuming our data is in Excel spreadsheet format, we click on the first tab. When you click on it, it brings you the import menu. Yeah, so the Excel import menu comes, and here almost everything is spelled out. File, Excel file. This is where you get to select the particular Excel file you want to import into Stata. And then we have the worksheet. So once you select the Excel file and it's uploaded, you have to select the type of worksheet or the particular worksheet. You know, mostly an Excel file has different Excel workbook has different worksheets. So when you select the Excel workbook, then you have to select which worksheet. Fortunately, with Stata, once you select your Excel workbook, it automatically selects the first Excel sheet as the worksheet. Okay, and so it's usually even advised, or I would advise you that once you are importing your data and you select your workbook, do well to make sure that your workbook just has one worksheet. Okay, so once you select the worksheet, your worksheet is indicated. You'd have to tell Stata whether you want to import your first rows as variable names. Maybe this may sound vague now, but once we import the data, you see what it means. And you want to tell Stata your variable case. So the variables, how they will be labeled. Do you want them to come in uppercase, lowercase, or the way they were? That's to preserve their originality from wherever we were taking them. Okay, so let's go ahead, click on browse. Then we come to our data sets. Okay. Let's go to, so here we have just one file because we are selecting, there are many files actually in this repository, but then because our file type is Excel, it only identifies, or the only active file here is the Excel file. So let's just click on it. It selects it and then it gives us a preview of how it looks like. Okay, so once you select the Excel file, we click on open, and once you open it. We have a preview pane here that tells us, or that shows us how our data will look like once we import it into Stata. So we can take a quick or casual look at it quickly. And when you do that, you realize that the first row, the labels are the original labels of headers of Excel. The A, the B, the C, the D's and all that. But that's not what we want, especially when you are doing your data analysis and when you collect save data. You want your first row, which clearly defines the particular variable. And mind you, every column is a variable, and every row is an observation or information for a particular subject or participant. So you want to tell Stata that my first row is, or this particular row, that's your first row, should be your variable names. So to do that, you just click on import first row as variable names. And once you do that, you come and select lower case. Well, I usually prefer lower, and this is why I prefer lower, because when you start writing your commands, sometimes you may forget in what case your variables are. So once it's in lower, it's easier for me by default to just type my distance in the lower. Okay, so when you select preserve, what you are telling Stata is that when it goes, or when picking the variables or when importing the data, the original case of your variable, so this submission date, for instance, the capital S here and the capital D here would remain. But assuming you select lower, it will convert all of these to lowercase and there will be small letters. So if it imports it, you see submission date, and the S here would actually be a small s and the D here would be a small d. And so submission date would all be in lowercase. And if you selected upper, the reverse would happen. Everything would be uppercase. So like I said, I usually prefer to select lower by default, and I would advise you to select lower, because going forward, when you start doing your analysis, you realize that it's usually safer to safer to select lower and quicker. It would help you to quickly write your codes, especially when you don't like turning on your caps while typing and all of that. Yeah, sure. So that's about that. Once this is done, you click on OK. Once you click on OK, it imports the data into your Stata software. So, and how do you know this? You can tell this by just looking at a few things. In the results pane, you see that it tells us that it has imported, and it's giving additional information here that there are about 50 variables and 184 observations. And at the variable pane, you see that now it's populated with the variables here from submission date up to key. And so we see all our variables that are necessary for this particular analysis here. Okay, and then here we mentioned that this is the history, the command history pane, and so it has taken record of this particular command we entered. So far we've entered just one command, and that's the import command. We can see it boldly here, and so that's what it does. Okay, so I think we've had a feel of how this looks like, and it's interesting. We'll go further and we'll learn a lot. Now let's go and learn how to import using a different file format. Okay, so go again to import, then we select text, that's CSV format, comma separated format. Okay, so we select CSV, and this is the import pane for a CSV file. Again, we get to select where you see that yellow folder open. That's where you click on to go and select a particular file. And again, here also we can tell what particular delimiter we will be using. You can indicate the first row as variables and the case you want, just like the Excel import pane or menu. So let's go ahead, we'll click on this. Again, we go to where our data is, online training. then we select. Okay, so you see that in this repository also, the only file we see here is the CSV file. Okay, that's because we indicated, or we told Stata that we needed to upload a CSV. The text file we wanted to select is a CSV. So already the only thing that's active here is a CSV file. So we click on open, and then it will also preload and preview the data for us. So now there are a few things to do. You see that the delimiter is left automatic. The first row as variables is also automatic. You can select it as always or never or custom. So custom is when you want to. So you have the control, and you have control over when you want to set it as true or false. Okay, and so automatic means you leave Stata to decide that for you. I guess you already know that. So it's best, especially with CSV, just leave it at automatic. As you can see, it has done that. It has set the first row as the variable names, and so just by setting it to automatic, so we don't really need to change anything there. And the case here is lower, but if you wanted it to be upper and or to preserve the case from the original data, that's the CSV file, it would have done that. So lower, let's leave it at this. These are not important and are not really relevant to us now. Later we'll be learning about them. Okay, then once that is done, you can preview the data. You see that everything is okay. Then come and click on what? Okay. If you click on OK, it's telling us we want to override our data. That's because we already have data loaded in our Stata. And so once we are trying to import, then it has to overwrite or replace what is already in the memory. So we can go on to click on yes to see how that happens, and then it goes. So you will see that the next command is also another import with the same variables, the same number of observations, because basically the same data set, just that it's in two different file formats. Then the history pane, command history pane, you see that there are now two commands that have been entered to find the same. Now we have our variables here, but no labels. Okay, so this is about importing data, labeling, labeling. Because we don't have labels here, we can learn about labeling a variable and all of that. So we'll be doing that in the next series of videos. Okay, so stay tuned. There's more to learn. And thank you for your time. I do appreciate it. But let me give you just something, an additional tip, if you may want to learn further. Okay, so once my data is here, then I want to know the number of observations. I simply use count, and then I know that it's 184. But I use the describe command. It gives me a description of all the variables, but here unfortunately because we don't have the variable labels, we can't really tell what description that is. But if for instance we had rerun the Excel one, let's do this, and replace. Okay, option allowed. So these are the errors. So yeah, so basically this is what happens. Any error, anything highlighted in red is an error, just so you know if you didn't. So because I was trying to import, I wanted to import the Excel file directly. So instead of this, I just come in just to show or highlight something. So let us know something I was trying to say. Yeah, so change what is in the memory. So yeah, so I was trying to show us that once we describe and the variables have labels, then we would have seen that also as part of this, and you can get to know for each variable the story type, the display format, and the value. For these things you can actually change them, the display format, especially when you are formatting your data It's cool. So when you use the table command and all of these, there are a lot of commands to learn. And